Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling a career that's as heroic as it is impactful, becoming a firefighter instructor.
It's interesting, isn't it? We're talking about the people who shape those who run towards danger, not away from it. They mold the minds, the
The
skills.
heroes who make us feel safe. And you've shared some really cool resources with us from RoleCatcher, career guides, interview tips, even AI and job searching, ready to ignite our understanding.
Absolutely. Let's spark this conversation. What I find most fascinating about this career is the marriage of, well, you have to be physically fit, obviously, but there's a huge intellectual component too. You're not just teaching textbook facts.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. You're shaping heroes, equipping them for those split-second decisions when lives are on the line.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. The role catcher guides, they really paint a picture, It's dynamic, right? One minute you're explaining fire science, maybe legal regulations, all classroom based, then the next.
You're out on the training ground, demonstrating that fire hose, how to handle it when it feels like it wants to pull you right off your feet.
And speaking of being pulled in all directions, a firefighter instructor needs to be in peak condition, right? Not just to demonstrate, but to keep up with.
Oh, those recruits are eager.
Yeah.
Imagine running drills with folks practically bursting to prove themselves. It's high energy all the time.
Sounds intense, but also incredibly rewarding. The guides mention high job satisfaction as a big pro, but I'm curious to go a bit deeper. What is it about this path that brings that fulfillment?
You're nurturing courage, resilience. Think about it. You're training the people who are first on the scene. Fire, car crash, you name it.
When most of us would run the other way.
Exactly. That impact, it goes way beyond just the training ground. Safer communities, that's what you're building.
Powerful stuff. But it can't be all adrenaline and heroism all the time. There have to be challenges too.
Oh, for sure. RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat it. We're talking high stress, putting yourself in danger. Even if it's a controlled training environment, it takes a toll.
To not just handle that yourself, but teach others.
Exactly. You need a certain resilience to not just survive this career, but thrive in it.
Speaking of, what does the path to becoming a firefighter instructor actually look like?
Well, like anything worth doing, it starts with getting your feet wet. Or I guess in this case, more like getting your boots wet. You need that on-the-ground experience as a firefighter first.
Right, because you can't teach what you haven't lived.
Exactly. And that experience usually translates to specific certifications, Firefighter I and II, for example.
Yeah.
But these aren't just, pieces of paper or check marks. They demonstrate a deep understanding of fire behavior, the safety protocols.
So when we say firefighter I, what does that really entail? What kind of skills are we talking?
Firefighter I, that's your bread and butter. Think. The skills you absolutely need to be safe and effective at a fire scene.
So what, like using equipment, understanding how fire acts?
Exactly. Using and maintaining equipment is huge. Then there's understanding the chain of command at a scene, knowing how to respond to different emergencies. All under pressure, of course. And all while more seasoned firefighters are watching your every move.
Sounds intense, to say the least. What about firefighter 2? How does that build upon those skills?
Firefighter 2 is where things get really interesting. You're diving into more advanced techniques. You learn about ventilation, which is creating openings to control fire and smoke.
So not just putting out the fire, but managing it, understanding how it behaves.
You got it. Then there are forcible entry techniques to actually get into a burning building, which is its own challenge, let me tell you, and then operating at different types of fires. Fires fueled by flammable liquids, for example. Plus, you'll get your first taste of incident command systems.
Sounds like this level really sets you up to take charge.
It does. It's about leadership as much as it is about technical skill. You're not just learning how to fight fires. You're getting ready to potentially lead a team doing it.
So you've walked the walk as a firefighter, got those certifications under your belt. What's next on this path to becoming an instructor?
Well, the beautiful thing about this field is the learning never stops. RoleCatcher mentions additional training, like hazardous materials handling, and that's becoming so essential.
Right, because it's not always just a fire, sadly.
Exactly. And then there's EMT certification, which, well, I think it goes without saying how valuable those medical skills are when you're responsible for the well-being of your recruits.
Especially during those intense training exercises. But there's a whole academic side to this too, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. You can't forget that.
Yeah.
And that's something else RoleCatcher really hits on. The importance of formal education. We're talking degrees in fire science, emergency management, public safety administration.
What's the advantage of pursuing those kinds of degrees? Is it really necessary when you have all that hands-on experience?
It's about getting to that deeper understanding. It's one thing to know how to fight a fire, it's another to understand the why behind the how.
So for example, with a fire science degree.
That dives into the chemistry and physics of fire, how fire behaves in different environments, understanding how different buildings are constructed, how that plays into a fire. That knowledge, it's crucial for making strategic decisions during a fire.
That makes sense. And what about emergency management, public safety administration? How do those areas of study help?
They broaden your scope. You're looking at the big picture, learning about risk assessment, how to prepare for disasters, how incident command systems work, the legal aspects of emergency response. You're even learning about things like how to best communicate with the public during a crisis.
It's more than just fighting fires then. It's understanding the whole system, the factors that contribute to these emergencies.
Exactly. And all of this leads us to a pretty cool aspect of the job search process itself that RoleCatcher points out. AI.
AI and firefighting. That's not a connection I would have made immediately. Tell me more.
Right. You think AI, you picture robots or self-driving cars, but here it's about using these really powerful algorithms to your advantage during your job search.
So how does that work in this context? Give me an example.
Okay, imagine this. You're applying for a firefighter instructor position. Instead of just sending out the same old resume and cover letter, you use an AI tool. You feed it maybe a dozen job descriptions for similar roles.
And it, what, analyzes them?
Exactly. It figures out exactly what employers are looking for, not just general skills, but the specific keywords, even the tone of the writing.
Wow, it's like having a secret weapon to make sure your application rises to the top.
In a way, it is. And it can get even more impressive. Some tools will actually help you rewrite your resume and cover letter to perfectly match what the AI found.
No more guessing what sounds good.
No more guessing. You're using data to make your application stand out.
That's incredible. But it doesn't stop there, does it?
You know it doesn't. RoleCatcher even talks about AI that can help you get ready for your interviews.
Oh, wow. Tell me more about that.
Think about it. You can practice answering common interview questions, and the AI gives you feedback. Not just on what you say, but how you say it, your tone, even your body language if you're doing a video interview.
It's like having your own personal coach.
Exactly. And the best part is, you're not relying on gut feelings. You're using data to boost your chances.
This is all fascinating, but I want to make sure we have enough time to really get into the day-to-day of being a firefighter instructor. We've talked skills, qualifications, but what about career progression?
RoleCatcher has a really interesting breakdown of the typical journey. It usually starts with being a probationary firefighter.
So this is where it all begins. Fresh out of the academy, ready to prove yourself. What kinds of things would a probationary firefighter be focusing on?
This stage is all about mastering the fundamentals. You're learning the ropes, literally. Things like using and maintaining all the equipment properly, understanding that chain of command we talked about, responding to those emergencies.
And I'm guessing there's a lot of hands-on experience involved in that stage.
Oh, absolutely. It's immersive. You're not just reading about fire behavior in a textbook, you're seeing it in action. You're learning to read those signs, how important teamwork and communication are. When the heat is on, you have to rely on the person next to you without a second thought.
Because when you're dealing with a fire, there's no room for misunderstandings or hesitation.
Exactly. And as a probationary firefighter, you're building that trust with your team. You're showing them you're competent, you can handle yourself under pressure.
You're proving yourself. So let's say you've put in the work, honed your skills, earned that respect. What's next in becoming an instructor?
The next big step RoleCatcher highlights is the academy recruit stage. And this is where that formal training to become a firefighter instructor really kicks in.
So does that mean we're moving from the field and into the classroom?
Not entirely. You'll still have hands-on training, but the focus shifts. Now it's about learning how to effectively teach others.
That makes sense. After all, you're going to be responsible for passing on all that knowledge and experience to the next generation.
Exactly. You have to know how to break down these complex procedures into smaller steps that someone who's brand new can understand. How to communicate clearly and concisely, adapt to different learning styles.
Yeah.
Not everyone learns the same way, after all.
So it's not just showing someone how to, say, use a fire hose. It's explaining why it works that way.
Exactly. You're explaining the physics behind it, the safety protocols, when to use which nozzle. And you're doing all of this while being the example, demonstrating the professionalism, the confidence. That's expected of a firefighter instructor.
It's like being a role model, in addition to being an instructor.
Exactly. And for those who really excel in this stage, the path naturally leads to becoming a full-fledged firefighter instructor. But here's the thing about this career. It never gets boring.
Because there's always something new to learn, new techniques, new challenges.
You got it. RoleCatcher really emphasizes how crucial continuous professional development is for a firefighter instructor. They highlight a bunch of certifications that can really boost your expertise and open up new possibilities down the line.
So on top of those core firefighter I and II certifications, what other specializations could an instructor pursue?
Well, you mentioned hazard and materials handling earlier. That's a big one. Getting certified to handle hazmat situations, that equips you to teach those specialized procedures to others, which is becoming more and more important.
It seems like every time you turn on the news, there's a new chemical spill or something similar.
It's true. And of course, we can't forget about EMT certification. Having those medical skills, those are invaluable in a role where you're responsible for the safety of your recruits, especially during those high-intensity training exercises.
Right, because accidents can happen even in a controlled environment, so you really do have to be prepared for anything.
Exactly. And then there are certifications that are specifically geared toward teaching and leadership, like fire officer certifications or specialized instructor certifications.
So you're constantly building your credentials, deepening your expertise, which, when you think about it, lets you provide the best training to those future firefighters.
Absolutely. But RoleCatcher goes a step further. They talk about how important it is to build a portfolio, a way to showcase your experience and thought leadership.
What kind of things would go into a firefighter instructor's portfolio?
It's about going above and beyond, developing new training programs, creating engaging lesson plans, maybe writing articles for firefighting journals, or even speaking at conferences. It's about becoming a thought leader in your field.
So you're not just teaching, you're shaping the future of firefighting.
Precisely. You're influencing how firefighters are trained and equipped to handle whatever comes their way.
That's incredible. It's like you're leaving a legacy.
You are, in a way. And that brings us back to the huge impact firefighter instructors have. It's not just about the individual firefighters they train. It's about making communities safer, more resilient.
Now that's something to think about. We've talked about how AI plays a role in landing a job as an instructor, but how else do you think technology will change the future of firefighter training? What's next?
Oh, that's a great question. Imagine a world where virtual reality lets recruits experience incredibly realistic fire scenarios, but in a completely safe environment. Or augmented reality that overlays critical information right onto their field of vision during a training exercise.
The possibilities really are endless. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of firefighter instructors. It's clearly a challenging career, but one that offers so much in return.
It's about leveraging those algorithms, putting them to work for you.
So how does that actually look, in the real world of applying for these jobs?
Okay, picture this. You're on the job hunt, right? Firefighter instructor, that's the goal. You got your resume, your cover letter.
Ready to send them out to every department you can find.
Exactly. But hold on. Instead of that, you use an AI tool. And you feed it, say, a dozen different job descriptions for similar roles.
So what, it reads them or something?
It analyzes them, yeah. But not just on a surface level. It digs deep, figures out exactly what those employers want to see. We're talking the specific skills they're looking for, keywords, even the tone they use in the job description.
I never would have thought about the tone of the writing, but that makes sense.
It can make a difference. And here's the kicker, some AI tools. They can actually help you rewrite your resume and your cover letter so it lines up perfectly with what the AI found.
No more guessing or asking your friend who's good at writing to take a look.
Exactly. Data-driven applications, that's the future.
So you're not just guessing what sounds good, you're using, cold, hard data.
Exactly. And it goes even further. RoleCatcher, they mentioned AI tools that can actually help you prep for your interviews.
Okay, now that's just wild. How does that even work?
You can practice answering those common interview questions, right?
Right.
And the AI, it analyzes your answers.
Waits for you to mess up so it can tell you what you did wrong.
Not exactly, though it will point out areas for improvement. It'll analyze your tone, how you're coming across, even your body language if you're doing a video interview.
I guess all those little things add up, huh?
They do. It's like having a personal coach in your pocket giving you tips.
Mm.
And the best part is, you're not relying on gut feelings anymore. You're using actual data to improve your chances of getting the job.
This is all amazing stuff, but I want to make sure we have enough time to really understand what it's like to actually be a firefighter instructor, day to day. We've talked skills, education, even AI, but What about career progression? What does that typically look like?
So RoleCatcher provides a really good breakdown of the typical path. Usually you start as a probationary firefighter.
Okay, so that's ground zero, fresh out of the academy, raring to go. What kinds of things would someone in that position be focusing on?
It's all about the basics at that stage, mastering the fundamentals, learning the ropes, quite literally.
I can imagine.
Things like how to properly use and maintain all the equipment, understanding the chain of command, being able to respond to all sorts of emergencies under pressure.
And all while you have more experienced firefighters watching your every move.
Oh, absolutely. It's immersive for sure. You're not just reading about how fires behave, you're seeing it firsthand.
Learning by doing, I like it.
Exactly. And you learn quickly how vital teamwork and communication are in this job. When a fire's raging, you have to trust the people next to you, no questions asked.
Because in that situation, any hesitation could be disastrous.
Absolutely. And that's something else you're building as a probationary firefighter.
Yeah.
Trust. You're showing your team you've got what it takes, you can handle the pressure, you've got their back.
It's as much about proving yourself as it is about learning the ropes.
You got it. So you've put in your time, you've honed those skills, you've earned the respect of your peers. What's next?
Let's hear it. What's the next rung on the ladder?
RoleCatcher highlights the Academy recruit stage as a turning point. This is where the formal training to actually become an instructor, that kicks into high gear.
So, are we trading in the fire hose for a lesson plan at this point?
You're not completely off the hook when it comes to hands-on training, but the focus does shift. Now it's about learning how to teach those skills to others.
Which, when you think about it, is just as important as knowing how to fight the fire yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to break down these really complex procedures into bite-sized pieces, things that a brand new recruit can understand. And you have to communicate clearly, adapt to different learning styles. Not everyone learns the same way.
Right. What works for one person might not work for another.
You got it.
So it's about more than just demonstrating how to, say, operate a fire hose. It's about explaining why it works that way, right?
Exactly. You're explaining the physics behind it, the safety protocols, when to use which nozzle, all while you're setting the example. You're demonstrating that professionalism, the confidence that every firefighter instructor should have.
It's about more than just ticking boxes and checking off requirements, isn't it? You have to actually want to teach, to share that passion with others.
It really is, and RoleCatcher highlights that aspect, that mentorship, especially when they talk about the cadet firefighter stage.
So this is where those leadership qualities we were discussing earlier come into play.
Exactly. Cadet firefighters, they start taking on more responsibility, assisting with the training of those newer recruits, the ones just starting out.
Putting all that hard-won knowledge into practice, showing the newbies the ropes.
That's the idea. And they're not just shadowing the more experienced instructors either. They're helping develop those lesson plans, running drills, even giving feedback to their peers.
It's like a testing ground for future instructors, almost.
In a way, it is. They're demonstrating their firefighting knowledge, sure, but also their ability to lead, to inspire, to actually teach what they know.
So for those who really shine in this role, the next step is pretty clear: becoming a full-fledged firefighter instructor.
Exactly. But here's the thing about this line of work. The learning never really stops.
That's what makes it exciting, though, right?
Exactly. And RoleCatcher really stresses that, how important continuous professional development is for firefighter instructors.
So always be learning, always be growing.
Right. And one way to do that is by earning additional certifications, just like we talked about earlier.
So beyond the firefighter IN2, what other certifications are we talking about here?
Well, you mentioned hazardous materials handling, and that's a big one. Getting certified in that, it means you can teach others those really specialized procedures, which are only becoming more essential.
It seems like almost every day there's another news story about a chemical spill or some kind of hazmat situation.
It's true. And of course, there's the EMT certification. Having those medical skills, that's huge in a role where you're responsible for the well-being of your recruits. Things can get pretty intense, even in training.
Definitely. You want to make sure everyone goes home safe and sound at the end of the day.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are certifications that are geared specifically towards teaching and leadership within the fire service. So things like fire officer certifications or instructor certifications from different organizations.
It sounds like there are a lot of ways to specialize and really hone your skills as an instructor.
There are. And it's not just about formal certifications. RoleCatcher also talks about how important it is to build a portfolio as an instructor, something that showcases your experience. You know, your thought leadership in the field.
Okay, so what exactly would go into a portfolio for a firefighter instructor?
Think about it. You could create new training programs, design innovative lesson plans, maybe even contribute articles to firefighting journals or present conferences, anything that shows you're not just teaching, but you're helping to advance the profession as a whole.
You're shaping the future of firefighting, one recruit, one article, one presentation at a time.
Exactly. And it all circles back to what we talked about before, the ripple effect that firefighter instructors have.
It's not just about the skills, but the impact, right?
Right. You're not just training individuals, you're contributing to safer, stronger communities, and that's something really special.
It really is. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the hands-on skills to the educational pathways, even touched on AI and the future of firefighting instruction.
We did. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Before we wrap up, I do want to leave our listeners with a final thought. We talked about the role of AI in helping someone land a job, but how else do you envision technology changing the future of how we train the next generation of firefighters?
Now that's a question. Imagine a world where virtual reality lets those new recruits experience incredibly realistic fire scenarios, but it's all in a safe, controlled setting. Or augmented reality, where they're wearing a headset and it's overlaying crucial information right onto their field of vision during a training exercise.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of firefighter instructors. It's a challenging career, yes, but one that's incredibly rewarding.
It really is. You're making a difference. It's as simple as that.
That's a great note to end on. Until next time, thanks for listening.